episode of
80-bit Podsmash. 80-bit Podsmash.
80-bit Podsmash, where gaming goes to grab a beer. Or in our case tonight, whiskey.
Whiskey. Culturally refined. 80-bit Podsmash is a weekly video game podcast where we smash together topics and conversations surrounding video games with other things that you care about. I am Penguin.
I am Termite.
Yeah, we're your hosts. And so we're drinking whiskey, and that's because I am on a diet again, back on that keto to lose a little bit of weight because I got a little bit chunky after my baby was born and didn't have to, kind of just chose to stop because I didn't want to have to worry about trying to diet while taking care of a newborn. But I'm back on that train, and I'm already losing weight, and it's great.
It usually works pretty fast.
Yeah, but hey, did you hear there's a beer that is only 3.6 carbs?
I hate you so much.
It's called Dogfish Head Slightly Mighty.
Excuse me, audience. You're probably falling asleep now at the mention of that beer because you've heard about it so much from me. But it's a revelation to Penguin Man, apparently.
I was telling him about it. We have this app called Marco Polo to just sort of, it's whenever we're driving, instead of texting, we send basically video messages back and forth to each other. And I got so excited because I had just started the diet, and a friend of mine introduced me to that beer. But apparently these guys have talked about it for months now, and how excited they were.
We've had it on this show.
And low carb, and we even had it. I completely forgot all that until it was relevant to me in the current circumstance.
So until it was relevant to Penguin, it was he didn't care.
Just didn't really stick into my short-term memory.
The four of his friends that all had it and talked to him just didn't matter.
It's cool. It's all good.
Fine.
Yeah. But that's that.
The epitome of selective hearing.
Thing. Yep, just a funny Penguin thing. Selective hearing.
So what are we drinking tonight?
Tonight we are drinking Buffalo Trace whiskey. We went splitsies on it, just a whole bottle of it that hopefully will last us the next 2 months. If not, we'll have to get another one. Or get that beer. Get Slightly Mighty. But no, for now we're drinking whiskey, which I'm not complaining about.
Yeah, we gotta talk about it. It's Buffalo Trace,
whiskey,
which is legendary out of Kentucky. It's super, super hard to find in Virginia, where we are, and at least in our area. It is so popular that the only way you can find it is if you walk into an ABC store the minute they get the truck.
Which we did.
They don't take any reservations for it, and they do limit it 1 bottle per person.
Yeah.
And in the past, they didn't do those things, and it was impossible to get because people would put their names down and buy all of it in one go because it's so good.
Right. And it is tasty, but I'm more surprised that it's so popular and only the price that it was. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
we got it for
$30
less than that. It was 26. So that's pretty cool. So yeah.
There's a whole giant, long story that I don't know if we should read that. That'd take forever. What do you think?
I can knock it out real quick. Here we go. The ancient paths of countless buffalo led America westward. Legendary explorers, pioneers, and settlers alike followed these trails known as traces through the rugged wilderness to new lands, new adventures, and newfound freedoms. One such trace, called the Great Buffalo Trace, crossed Kentucky River at a spot just north of present-day Frankfort. Early pioneers settled here in 1775, and with plentiful pure limestone water and rich river bottom loam for growing exceptional grains, distillation quickly followed. With an unparalleled reputation for creating outstanding bourbon whiskey, the Buffalo Trace Distillery today stands as one of America's oldest distilling sites. The bold heritage of the mighty buffalo and the individuality of pioneering spirit of those early Americans are again found in Buffalo Trace Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, the very finest bourbon created at the Buffalo Trace Distillery. Traditionally handcrafted, Buffalo Trace has smooth, confident taste that invites discovery with every sip. Explore Buffalo Trace and the taste of Spirit of Legends.
There you go.
Yeah, get yourself a bottle. It's good. It's good.
And there's
it's sweet and smooth. That's what I would say.
Spicy a little bit. Like a little
spicy.
Cinnamon or something.
Yeah, and it's got, obviously it's whiskey, so it's got that kick right at the end and just send all the flavors home. I like it.
It's fantastic.
So if you get lucky, get yourself a bottle. If you see it in the liquor store and you pass by it because you're not familiar with it, then we are making you familiar with it. If you see it, get it.
Immediately.
Yeah.
And if you can't find it, like most people cannot, you can also check out Eagle Rare. It's made by the same distillery, and it's similar in profile, but more expensive.
Sweet. All right. Well, we usually start off our show by talking about what the goings-on are, and we have a couple of video game news, industry news items that we want to hit. So fire away, Termite.
The biggest announcement is, and this is according to an IGN article written by Adam Bankhurst, that the Nintendo Switch Lite has been announced.
Yay! Yeah, it's been all over the place this week. So
the Nintendo Switch Lite will be available in yellow, gray, and turquoise for $199.99. So essentially $200.
Mm-hmm.
The features are: it's a smaller 5.5-inch touchscreen. It's a lighter all-in-one design. There's no more detachable Joy-Con controllers. It has a D-pad, which is interesting, and I hope they make a Joy-Con that matches that. It's a different D-pad than the Joy-Cons have, because the Joy-Cons have 4-button configuration. It has an improved 3 to 7 hour battery life. No infrared or HD rumble functions. The infrared stuff is like on the bottom of the right joystick or Joy-Con. There's an infrared sensor for things. No ability to dock to a TV or play in tabletop mode.
Yep. So it's really it literally is like the DS, except with one screen and the Switch capabilities.
It looks like it has a little bit more of a rugged shell. You can throw it in a bag, take it with you. It's a little bit easier to carry. It's smaller form factor, and you don't have the removable Joy-Cons to worry about.
Well, and it's charge. Yeah, exactly.
Longer battery life.
I'm assuming it doesn't take a graphical hit.
Nope.
From all of that stuff, it's the same graphical fidelity as the Switch. You just can't. I guess it will be stuck in the 720.
Right.
Yeah, 720
it'll be in handheld mode configuration.
Resolution. Yep. Mm-hmm. Cool. So, but still, it's good. It's a great move by Nintendo to kind of continue their handheld thing. I just don't, as I was musing at you earlier, I just don't hope they don't continue to iterate on it as aggressively and ridiculously as they did the DS, where there's that. I saw a meme on Reddit today that was like Nintendo Switch Lite, Nintendo Switch Lite XL, new Nintendo Switch Lite XL, and it was like a 20 entry long list of Nintendo Switch varieties that they could possibly have. I think they call it the Nintendo 2 Switch.
Here's a Termite thought. If you remember, maybe you don't, it was kind of a quiet news bit that there were some overclocking patches that had been applied to Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey.
Yeah.
And it was I don't remember why they did it. There was a relevant reason, but it reduced the load time significantly. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if that's relevant now to the non-dockable new Switch Lite. If you patch the software to overclock the processor, give it a bigger battery life so the battery drain doesn't really matter, and improve its like hardware architecture for cooling. I wonder if that's all related, like behind the scenes. It's like, we can actually match the docked performance, because if you dock the Switch, you actually sometimes you get better frame rates. You get a 1080p picture too, but now they don't have to worry about the 1080p resolution. So you should get better frame rates and performance. Yeah. And I wonder if that's all connected.
Yeah, I mean, the only other variation of a Nintendo Switch that I want is a stronger, more powerful one.
Supposedly that's coming.
Yeah, Switch Pro, if you will.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's the only other thing I could think of. I would be interested if they decided to go full home console with it. And get rid of the handheld. Side, the pro side. Just be like, look, you want a pro console? Like, we'll make you a pro console, and it's just a box, and it no longer has. It's got strong. It's something where it's closer to being competitive with the PS5 or Xbox Next. Scarlet.
I don't know. Nintendo's never really.
I know they're not really in that realm.
They don't even care to compete in that space.
But if they decided to, I think that would be interesting. This is just all I'm saying. So, all right. The only other thing that I wanted to talk about was while we're on the topic of Nintendo, I think I linked it to you.
The possible Switch link?
Yeah.
Or, I'm sorry, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate
character
teaser?
Yeah.
Possible.
Right, it's possible. I'll just say what it is. The makers of the game Shantae, which is a popular platformer
that's relevant.
We're going to be talking about today, so they just released their latest game in the franchise, and the opening cinematic has her waking up, and the character waking up and looking out a window. The window is a circular window with a upside down kind of slightly off-center cross,
which is the Smash Bros.
Logo. Yeah, so she's literally staring at a Smash Bros. logo. It is either an homage to the fact that Shantae fans have been clamoring for her in Smash for a while, or it's a slight tease at the possibility of her being in Smash. So, I mean, freaking Banjo-Kazooie's in Smash, so at this point anything's possible.
Yeah.
She would be a shoo-in fit. She's a very kind of cartoony platforming character, so it would make sense in a platforming fighting game. So, that's that I thought was intriguing. It's not huge, but it was a fun little bit for the past couple weeks.
Yeah.
So, cool. Anything else?
That's it.
Cool. All right. So after we are done talking about news, we usually move on to our next segment, which is
Doing This Podcast is Our Favorite Thing. Doing This Podcast is Our Favorite Thing.
Favorite things. I went a little up with that.
You did a little bit.
Yeah, a little lilt.
Hopefully we have a little harmony there.
Yeah. Is our favorite thing going to be the same thing or
no? I have a backlog of favorite things because so much stuff happened in 1 week that I can't talk about it all in 1 week, or I would just logorrhea all over the mic.
What is your number 100% absolute favorite thing?
It depends on the order of, if I want to stay in chronology, then I follow the backlog as it happened, but
come
then I'd
on.
be super late.
What's the most important thing that's happened to you since we last recorded?
Right, and that would be the birth of my second child.
Yay! Second son. He's your second son. You
Infamous.
I was going to say, we need to nickname him Infamous.
Yep, so that happened, and we're doing well. I took off a couple of weeks for paternity leave.
Welcome to the world,
Jude
Bowen. It's very cute. Yes. He's sweet. He's a little nugget.
He is. He's 10 days old today.
Yeah.
So, yep, we love it. I mean, it's a work, but the second child is nowhere near as bad as the first.
Right.
And I don't know if it's because he's a better baby.
Although they always
because
say
our lifestyle's already established.
I think it depends on how bad your first one was. If you
He was
had
bad.
if you had a bad first one, then your second one will be nice comparison. If you have a good first one like I did, I'm like worried about the second one. I'm like, when's the other shoe gonna drop?
Right. Hey, I'm in the same boat. When's the other shoe going to drop? Jude's been doing great over the last 10 days, and I'm just waiting for him to... Like, my first kid, I could not put down. He would not... He would never let you put him down in anything. A bassinet, a crib, a rocker, a swing, nothing. He would just scream bloody murder if you let go of him anytime.
Still kind of does, but, it's all good.
Right, it's true. Actually, he kind of screams when I don't
It's kind of
let
like
go.
scream bloody murder in the sense that he's running around screaming.
Yeah, he's
in
nuts.
excitement. Yeah.
And now Jude lets us put him down anywhere.
Yeah.
And he's totally content in a rocker, a swing, a crib, and a bassinet. So it's nice.
Yeah.
And he actually sleeps, which my first son never did. So that's kind of cool, unless you're holding him.
Yeah.
That was the first son. So, yeah, it's been going well. Everyone's healthy. Everyone's happy. I took off work, which was amazing. I did not expect a vacation at all.
It's not really a vacation, is it? But
exactly.
Yeah.
You think that. So I had this plan since last November that I'm taking 3 weeks off from work whenever the baby's born. It's not really a vacation.
Yeah.
But it kind of is.
But it's feeling like it right now
my
because he's so
gosh.
easy. That's great.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what mine kind of felt like because Gavin was
amazing.
super easy. So I'm like, okay, all right.
Yeah.
He's just sleeping. So I'm going to play. I think I was playing Anthem at the time. So yeah,
Hey,
let's play that.
I can update. Well, it says side rail. What are you playing?
Okay.
I'm playing Skyrim on PlayStation 3 because I had two reasons I picked it up on PS3 was because one, I wanted to experience it with the console generation that it came out with because I'm a nerd and that's what I like to do is get that cultural relevancy hit, and also because trophies.
Because trophies.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And to get both, I had to get PS3. I could have got on the PS4, the remastered one, but then I wouldn't have experienced it the way it was when it launched, which is what I was going for.
Which is
so
super
I'm
long
enjoying
load
it.
times.
Everything sucks. The frame rate's terrible. It's ridiculously clunky. The controller's garbage, and I'm loving it.
Nice. Great.
So that's my favorite thing.
Fantastic.
Not Gavin. He's pretty great.
Gavin's great, yeah.
But Jude is my favorite thing.
Yeah. My favorite thing, I'm going to have two, or no, I'll just do the one. Do the one. Yours, the sentimental one, made me kind of want to do a sentimental one. But
Your life's not that great.
it's not.
I'm just kidding.
My son is. My
Wow.
son's life is great.
You're not supposed to respond like that. Jeez. Wow. His life is fine.
His life
He's
is fine.
good.
That's why I said his life is great.
No,
My
your
life's
life.
fine.
That's what I
my
said.
life. Yeah, my
I said
life
your
is
life's
good.
not that good.
My
And you're like,
life
oh,
is
it's not. I'm like, yeah, your life is pretty good.
Yeah, my life's fine. Whatever. Fine. My favorite thing is Stranger Things. Stranger Things season 3 has been awesome. I've just finished it last night with my wife, and it was good. Good fun.
Yeah, it was.
Good stuff. It's not without its
It was amazing.
weaknesses,
I loved it.
and I have my criticisms of it, which I laid out to Termite earlier. That's fine. Most of them.
Is there anything you don't have criticisms to lay out?
I can't really watch things anymore without using my critical eye. But that said, like, first season was perfect to me. So I think first season is still the best season of Stranger Things, but they're still staying good quality. Like, it may be like each season's getting a little bit worse, but it's still so good, So it's like, it's not worth that complaining about that much. So it's still really good. If you have Netflix, which, come on, who doesn't have Netflix?
Right.
Then check it out. It's really fun.
The world might not after November.
That's true.
When
yeah,
Disney launches. And everything.
Well, and you and I were just discussing that, like, Netflix is running out of, like, Stranger Things probably won't go on forever. Like, the Duffer Brothers, the creators, have said they only want to do, like, 5 at most seasons.
Yeah.
So if they lose Stranger Things, I'm going to have a hard time justifying why I'm still keeping my Netflix subscription.
Know that Marvel and Star Wars and everything else is going to Disney.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So they need to start pumping out better original content is all that it boils down to. Like, they need another Stranger Things. They do.
Yep.
So, all right. Favorite things. Now it's time for DLC. Downloadable content, or DLC, is the next segment of our podcast where we have a fun little gimmicky conversation, something that you normally wouldn't necessarily have about video games or wouldn't necessarily have thought of. Tonight's does kind of hook up with our main topic about platformers. So I wanted to ask for DLC, what was the most fun, quote-unquote, real-life platformer you have ever done? Or an experience, another way of wording it is, what's an experience that you had that was like a platformer, but in real life?
So because I did research, and I know there's subgenres into
okay.
platforming,
Yeah.
you probably know where I'm going with this. There is a subgenre of platforming in the mobile space known as never-ending or infinite runner.
Run, yeah.
And so I'm going to say running marathons is the closest thing I can physically real life do as a
Sure,
platformer.
but most platformers, even Infinite Run ones, have some jumping portion of it.
But I don't parkour.
So, yeah, you don't.
So, running.
I'm going to say two things. Yeah, two things. My family and I used
Jumping into a pool?
We used to regularly go to a river called I think it was called the Moray River in the
That sounds
valley,
familiar.
in the Shenandoah Valley. And
Whiskey River?
This particular, we also did it at I remember we did it at another place called Riven Rock. I don't know which actual river it was, but it was called Riven Rock. But what we would do is we'd go to these rivers that had lots of big rocks in them that were very rocky.
Yeah.
And we just we called it rock hopping. I'm sure that's probably what it's called. So we go and then do exactly it's exactly a platformer. It's whoop whoop, like jumping from rock to rock and trying to make your way as far up the river as possible. So that was really fun. And then in that same vein, I remember so it was when I was in Boy Scouts and we'd go to the New River, which is in West Virginia, and we'd go whitewater rafting. But after whitewater rafting, there was a area where it was like a kind of a lake-ish area nearby, and we'd go down there, and the 1 or 2 years I remember being there, there was this big like inflatable like jungle gym thing that it was awesome, and it just like floated on the water, had all these little like things you could jump to and then like climb around on and stuff like that. And I remember we were still in our wetsuits from whitewater rafting, and so it was so much fun because the water was super cold because it was like March or something like that. It was really early in the year, and we'd just go we'd go on this thing and jump around. We were in our wetsuits, so whenever we fell in the river, it wasn't cold at all. So it was really cool.
You know, I've never worn a wetsuit. Ever.
Really?
Yeah.
I've only worn it on a couple of occasions. It is definitely a strange. It's very strange
Because you jump into super cold water, but you're not cold.
You're not
apparently.
cold. Yeah, and
Does it do the opposite with hot water?
I don't know. I think it absorbs heat.
Oh,
so that's why
so
you
get really hot.
get really hot. Yeah. It's fun. It's interesting because it also gets really tight around you because it's skin tight. So yeah, it's because I'm not used to jumping in the water with that many clothes on or that much coverage over my skin. So it's an interesting experience.
Would love to get a nice dad bod going on with the.
Yeah,
that'd be hot.
Cool. All right. Anything else to add? Anything that I said spark?
If I could have done a Spartan race or an obstacle race, I mean, those are like right up.
Those are kind of
platformers.
Have you ever
that's it.
hiked and gone to a hiking place where there's lots of rocks?
Have you done Old Rag before?
Yeah,
I've done Old Rag coming down the rocks, not up. We went up the fire road, which is like the back way.
Oh yeah,
and then came down the rocks.
Oh, nice.
Unfortunately, because I wanted to go up the rocks, but
yeah, Old Rag is close
reasons
enough.
I won't get into. We went up the fire walkway to the summit, hung out, and then came down the rocks.
Oh, boring.
It was fun. I mean, it's the first time I'd ever seen
Mm-hmm.
the rock side of Old Rag. But yeah, it's close. There's a rock.
There's a couple of moments that are kind of platformy in that.
Yeah.
So
most of our listeners are local.
Yeah.
According to all of the statistical data that I got. So you guys all know about Old Rag. But if you don't know about Old Rag, there is a section that's kind of like the beginners rock climbing. Super easy, like kids can do it. It's family oriented, and there's a ton of people, and it's usually like everyone helps each other. It's all like safe. I mean, if you're an
as
idiot,
safe as it can be.
Yeah, if you're an idiot, you're gonna risk hurting yourself. But it's
Right.
not anything strenuous to go up the rocks. But that's be the closest platforming thing I guess I've ever done.
Cool.
Yeah,
you're gonna think of something later. You're gonna be like, oh, I remember that thing that I did.
Yeah. I don't do a lot of jumping and climbing.
I apparently do, I guess, or used to. I'm getting old.
Yeah.
My knees are starting to buckle on me. But all right. Well, we've been sitting here talking about platformers on our DLC, but let's jump into our main topic. We're doing a deep dive on platformers, and let's start. We've been talking about it. We've been saying the words. What's a platform game?
What is a platform game? According to the Wikipedia, a platform game, or platformer, is a genre of video games. Platform gameplay is about jumping between platforms or over obstacles.
Yes, usually and or over obstacles. Yeah, I wanted to just throw in a disclaimer because the word platform comes up often on the podcast in two contexts. It's kind of confusing, but it's not to be confused with a software platform. A platform, in this case, Xbox is a platform, PlayStation 4 is a platform. Software platforms are just like places where you can publish content, essentially.
Steam's a platform.
Yeah, Steam's a platform.
Epic Game
Spotify
Store
is a platform. You know, like we engage with platforms on a regular basis, but
this is a genre of gameplay.
Yeah, we're not talking exactly gameplay. Yeah, we're not talking about like these are Xbox's platform. This is the games on their platform. We're talking about games that have platforming as a major gameplay mechanic element. Yep.
Yeah.
So in fact, they're like that's their core gameplay element. Yeah. Cool. Do we want to kind of like we defined it based on the Wikipedia, but what would you say like what separates a platform game from a game that has platforming elements in it to you?
Not a whole lot, and I was actually going to talk about this.
Okay.
You take up all the genres of video games, RPG, racing games, platformers.
Yeah.
If you look at a pie chart and you take every game ever released and you categorize it into a genre, I think platformers would take up like 70% of
Interesting.
the pie.
See, as I would disagree in the sense that I think a game is only a platforming game if it's the kind of core part of the core gameplay loop is this idea of jumping and climbing and really jumping. So games, for example, like Borderlands have jumping and even have jumping puzzles in them, but I wouldn't say they're platformers. I would say they're first-person shooters that have platforming elements.
Right, first-person shooter zone genre.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then like
moments.
Ocarina of Time, which has jumping and climbing,
Yeah.
is an RPG with platforming
But even
mechanics.
then, even its platforming mechanics, I remember even the Wikipedia said that games like Zelda are excluded from platformers because the jumping is automatic.
That's true.
As soon as you run up, you don't hit a button. So they were like, number one, the gameplay centers around a jump button, and then I would go as far as saying like even a jump button alone is not. I would say it has to be like a core part of the gameplay loop is jumping as a means to progress in the game. Even World of Warcraft has jumping in it, and even has jumping puzzles in it in some regards.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So it's but you wouldn't say it's a platformer. You'd say it has some elements,
an MMORPG,
and it has
with
some moments of platforming in certain parts of it.
Okay.
Exactly. That would be
Half-Life's the same way.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we
shooter
could
with-
probably pull tons and tons of examples. Uncharted has jumping in it. You know what I mean?
Uncharted isn't a platformer.
But you would argue
that's
it's a platformer.
100% a platformer.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree that kind of gets to the
Right.
line. But you can see how the lines kind of blur. There are games that are like, this is 100% a platformer. This is what you think of when you think
Mario.
of platformers. Yep, exactly.
That's the most ubiquitous one.
Yeah, and then there's like shades of gray as we get closer and closer to not platformers, or as we get closer to games that are just have platforming elements. So cool. But yeah, we're going to be talking about the ones that we're mostly going to be landing in the ones that are platformers. But yes, as I was hitting on earlier, you were hitting on earlier, there's tons of kind of sub genres and variations that are notable.
Yeah.
Because of their differences while still being firmly rooted in that platformer world. So fire away, Termite.
Right. So all of this is taken from the Wikipedia. If you just Google platform games, they have the list of all the genres. And I'm not going to recreate the wheel. So it might seem cheap that we're talking about Wikipedia articles here, but we add our own video game experience and conversations to this. So I read the definitions. I look at what they say. That gets my train of thought going and my gears cranking, and then Termite fills in the gaps. So I'm starting with that. You can follow along if you're at your desk and you care enough to even follow along here. But the first one, so yeah, lots of subgenres, is the puzzle platform game. And I actually struggled to come up with my own examples for this.
Yeah.
It did list Lost Vikings. Have you ever played that?
No, but I know it's a
Oh
Blizzard.
my gosh.
It's
It is a Blizzard game.
Yeah.
It is so hard. But you play as 3 different people, and you can switch between them at will.
Nice.
And there's a giant scrolling map with all these locking doors, these mechanisms, these pits to run, and they each have 3 unique abilities that you have to like use to help each other out.
Yeah, and they have to be in the
it's
right
single
spot
player.
at the right time.
It's
Wow.
all single player, so it's completely asynchronous. It's like, get this guy set up. You have to set up this like puzzle solution with opening doors, hitting switches with your abilities.
But you're jumping.
Oh, absolutely.
platforms
There's
and
tons
stuff.
of like
That's awesome.
one guy. I correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's one Viking who can't jump, and
Nice.
2 that can, and one might have a hook shot. I think he swings, so he
Yeah.
has like a longer gap coverage than the other one, and the other one's like really fast and can like get through doors that are timed. So yeah, you're hitting a switch with one Viking, switching to another who's faster, and running through a door before it closes. That kind
Wow.
of stuff.
Cool.
Craziness, right? you talk about how like first-person shooters with puzzle or platforming elements, I would put Portal in this.
Yes.
Completely.
Very much.
There's so much platforming is happening, but it is a first-person, quote, shooter with the portal gun. And that's the same kind of, like, puzzle platform game I could think of that wasn't mentioned in the Wikipedia.
And it's definitely, like, I mean, Portal's a unique little butterfly because it's definitely more than, it's got platforming, it's got first-person perspective, but it's also, like, firmly, I would say, a puzzle game as well. Like, not just a puzzle platformer, but a puzzle game, like at its core, it's like it's all about solving
that's
puzzles.
one of those like genre blurring games
for sure.
But it definitely fits here.
Yep, exactly.
So that's puzzle platform game. If you can think of any more, let us know. Run and gun platform games. That's Contra. Like that's quintessential. That's exactly what Contra is.
Usually, third person.
Yeah, like scrolling, guns, upgrades, health. You die a bunch of times, start over. Kind of like gameplay loop. There's a million of them. Lots of Contra clones in the world. Then you have the cinematic platform game. And I actually had to think about this because I would put Uncharted here.
I would put Uncharted here as well.
As a modern example because of the cinematics between all the platforming. And the platforming mechanics chain together the cinematics, the plot progression, the character progression, etc. It's all platform while you're playing.
They pad most of the game out with a lot of climbing and jumping.
Sure. And then there's some combat stuff in there too.
Yeah, it's definitely another blur, but Prince of Persia is another great.
I never played any of them.
Really?
Never played a Prince of Persia game.
I have some. I think I only played. I think I played one for sure, and I know I played two.
When you say one, do you mean like Super Nintendo one or like PS2?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, PS2, Prince of Persia or whatever. And I also played the other PlayStation Prince of Persia 2 Warrior Within, where it got all dark and gritty.
I think that's the one I have.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
I just remember being chased by some like shadow demon creature. That's what I remember of that one. Yeah.
Does it play like Uncharted?
I think so, yeah.
Assassin's Creed.
A little bit more wall running kind of action, but still, like, you're still trying, like, the major mode of getting from place to place is...
But cinematic is the key here.
Yeah.
So this camera angles...
Would you put Dishonored here as well, maybe?
Ooh, Dishonored.
It's kind of stealth platform, cinematic.
I don't know if I'd even put that in the platform category.
Really? Okay.
Because like, you do, like, you have a fast, like, zoom thing, and you do kind of, like, climb around and stage... or like how to defeat enemies without killing them if you want to go the stealth route.
But
or
it's
how to
not really...
But it's not like based... The center of the gameplay is not jump. What you defined earlier is not about jumping between platforms.
So it's got platforming elements. It's a stealth game with platforming elements. Okay. Cool.
And then one of the other better examples that I liked from older school gameplay is Oddworld. And I like this because, as an example for gameplay, it came out for PlayStation 1, which was a 32-bit platform. It was before, like, the open world 3D, which we'll get to. It was before that. So it's still a side-scrolling game where Mario is king. But this uses pre-rendered backgrounds and, like, cinematic animations to the sprites with live voice acting.
Yeah.
And it tells a story with cinematics between scenes, but it is 100% a platformer. It's actually really, really difficult.
Yeah.
So Oddworld is a really good example of what a cinematic platform game is.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. It's interesting because, like, Prince of Persia is one of those, another one that, like, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, but there's so many different categories. Like, the difference between a cinematic platformer and an action platformer. Like, I know that's not one of the lists here, but I just think to myself, I'm like, but I would kind of say, like, is it an action game with platforming elements, or is it a cinematic platformer? That's just kind of hard for me to, like, that one's a hard one. The more I think about it, the more I'm like, try to have a hard time finding examples that really...
Have you ever played an old school Ninja Gaiden or Shinobi game?
No.
That's like a side-scrolling platformer with, like, swords and you throw shurikens and that kind of stuff. Is that kind of the thing you're blurring here with the action platforming?
I don't know. It's some of these genres.
You're adding
hard
a new genre.
I am saying I kind of adding a new genre.
Yeah.
Well, I just think of it like it's an action game. Prince of Persia, I would say, is like an action game. In the same way that I would call God of War an action game, but it also has platforming elements.
Action is one of the most ambiguous.
It is frustrating. So is RPG, and unfortunately, it's only because RPG has gotten further removed from its origins.
Right.
But we've kind of talked about that. But it's
another ambiguous.
RPGs were originally just tabletop RPGs like D&D.
Right.
And then they began to be applied to games that had RPG-like elements.
Like Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
But unfortunately, the name RPG, being role-playing game, where you take the role of a character, can be applied to
anything.
That basic definition can be applied to so many things.
Yeah.
So that's why it's a hard one to nail down. But
back on the rails.
Back on the rails to the platformers.
The next subgenre I have listed here is comical action game / single screen platformer. And now you have to go way back to understand what these games are.
Yeah.
The original Mario Brothers arcade game. Do you remember what this is? It's Mario versus Luigi. There's some tunnels on each end, and enemies spawn out of the tunnels, and you have to kill X amount of enemies to progress to the next
level. Is that with a POW?
Yes.
Yeah,
Has the
I
PAL
do.
block.
Yep. I remember
and there's
the Mario Brothers.
that's the platform. It doesn't
Yeah.
scroll. There's not a level.
Right.
There's no story. It's all score based. And they call it like comical action because it has like exaggerated cabinet art that's like ridiculous. So in the original Donkey Kong is the same way, where Princess and Donkey Kong are at the top, and you have to climb. It's completely fixed.
And then when you get to the top, it like scrolls up another level, and then it's got new challenges. Yep.
Yeah, and I guess Wrecking Crew is another one. There's a Smash Bros. Level based on Wrecking Crew.
Nice.
With the tower.
I remember that.
Like that's another one too. The next one is an isometric platform game. Now this is funny because I hear the term isometric thrown around a lot.
Right.
And I was like, I need to just get a definition.
Define it.
Because
What is it?
I don't even know what this was. I just kind of understood it. So here's the actual definition taken from I just Googled isometric definition. A method for visually representing three-dimensional objects in 2 dimensions in technical and engineering drawing.
Interesting.
And then, so the perfect example was Sonic 3D Blast.
Yeah.
Have you ever played that?
No.
It's exactly that. Top-down view-ish, kind of this, angled top-down view of Sonic the Hedgehog, and you run across this, 3D, I say in quotes, 3D platform.
Yeah.
And you jump, hit enemies, it's solve puzzles, and it's nothing like Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah.
It's nothing like it at all, but it's Sonic 3D Blast, pretty popular game.
Nice.
So if you guys have played it, but Diablo is considered isometric
Right, yeah,
as well.
I was gonna say, I know.
There's just no platforming in
I've
Diablo.
always heard the term isometric being applied to, I usually just apply it to most games that are top-down now, like Warcraft.
But it has to be 2D. If it's polygonal, it's not isometric.
Interesting.
Yeah, because you're taking a 2D plane and you're representing 3D elements to it. That's the point.
Interesting.
It's like if I handed you a piece of paper with a drawing on it, it looks 3D to you, but it's a piece of paper with a drawing, so it's inherently not 3D, right?
As soon as you render a three-dimensional object,
it's not isometric anymore.
Interesting. Okay, well, cool.
Yeah, so that's Sonic 3D Blast.
I'll stop using that incorrectly now.
Yes,
and just say
do.
top-down.
Yep.
Cool. Next?
Platform adventure game. And it's funny you said Zelda was excluded because Zelda was included in this example.
Interesting, yeah. It seems like the Wikipedia article was inconsistent, as if it was written by multiple people.
Hey, how about that? So we're going to scratch Zelda and I can talk about it. So
Zelda 2 would definitely have platforming elements.
Side-scrolling, jumping.
Yep.
Yep. But Metroid and Castlevania are the two genre-defining games.
Yeah, they're your it's even to the point where platform adventure has become synonymous with Metroidvania.
Right.
And
there's a plethora of games today that you can get right now that are brand new, indie and not, that are
Metroidvania. Bloodstained Ritual of the Night is apparently
so
the most recent one that has been hailed very highly. Yep.
Like Celeste,
Dead Cells?
Dead Cells,
yep.
Tons.
Yep.
And then the endless running game that I alluded to earlier is mostly on platform or mobile platform games.
Yeah.
Where you just keep going forever.
They force you to run, but then you jump at certain times.
Yeah. So
you know what the greatest endless running game is of all time?
Temple Run?
No. The Google dinosaur
T-Rex. The T-Rex when there's an error on the webpage. Yep.
When you're out of internet, no connection. And you just start.
That's Google Stadia.
Yeah, for those who exactly Google Stadia original. For those who don't know, if you ever are in a Chrome browser, you can do it on your phone too, and you lose internet connection or have no internet connection, there's going to be a little thing with a T-Rex and like a cactus. If you click, I think if you just hit spacebar on a PC or just click on your press on your phone, touch on your phone, the dinosaur will start moving and you have to jump over cactuses. Totally a platform.
I just turned off my mobile data and Wi-Fi and just to try load a website up, and sure enough, you might even be able to hear it.
Nice.
That'd be funny if it came up on the microphone, but
it's
so now
just
I'm playing
built into Chrome. It's
8-bit Podsmash is over. It's done. Termite's lost.
Yep.
He's playing
trying to get the high score on his.
Yep.
Put that down. Or I'll just talk about history myself. So cool. Next, I want to hit on the history of platformers. What is the first platform game? Where did this whole thing start?
Yeah, and all the genres, like I just alluded to a giant segment of history talking about super old games and modern games. So obviously, if let's go chronologically because it has changed drastically over the years.
Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Do you want to start with some of the old school stuff? You want me to start? How we want to?
Yeah, we'll talk about it. I mean, the platformers are almost as old as video gaming itself.
Oh, absolutely.
In some regards, at least elements of platformers have been there for a long time.
Yep.
The first credited precursor to platformers, in the sense that some people consider it the first platforming game, but others contend that,
of course,
is a game called Space Panic in 1980 by Japanese developer called Universal Entertainment, I think, not to be confused with Universal Studios.
Yeah, I was about to say, that's interesting.
Yeah, I looked it up too because I was like, Universal, interesting. And then I looked it up, and oh no, it's just an old Japanese developer. Huh. Anyways, so I don't know much about it, but I know that it has things like ladders and pits and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But there's no actual jump button, which is why people contend that it's not a platformer. But it did lay the foundation and inspire. It is credited for inspiration for the actual first technical platformer, which is a game that most people are familiar with. Donkey Kong in 1981, debut of Mario. We actually talk about this in our Mario.
Yeah.
Everything
Jumpman.
Mario. Yep. He was called Jumpman back in the day. So, technically, it was the technically first platforming game. So, go Nintendo for creating another genre, creating a whole new genre. So, all right.
And that was that was Donkey Kong's in the old school arcade / super early console like Atari era, where many single screen, very 2D, lots of like competitive and score based in nature. Like I mentioned, the Mario Brothers arcade game, Donkey Kong, etc., Pac-Man.
Back when PvP
Pac-Man's
was
not
just
really
beating someone else's score.
Right, yeah, that's all it was. So that was we covered that era. So then we moved into the NES era, and it was legendary because one, it was a home console doing this, not an arcade platform, which are technically better. Yeah. Better hardware, better screens, better sound. Mario for the original Nintendo was the first console game to have a scrolling screen. Legendary because the amount of RAM they had to work with and how Shigeru Miyamoto designed the whole thing, how they tack on the levels and subtract from, you can't go left, you can only go right. And there's a reason, because of technical limitations. Being able to explore worlds opened the door to stuff like Castlevania and Metroid later, where you have vertical scrolling as well as horizontal scrolling. So all of that's kind of what I say, the NES era, the early 80s essentially. Then you move into the Super Nintendo era in the 90s, where they continue to perfect the side-scrolling platform style. And I say perfect because there are indie games today that just mimic the Super Nintendo, the 16-bit era of Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo. Like Celeste is the perfect example.
They don't do anything new other than just adding new.
There's some new fluid-like animations.
I was going to say modern animating techniques. That's about it. Yeah,
but you can tell the art style is very much reminiscent of the 16-bit era, and therefore it's timeless. Like even some of the NES stuff is timeless too. But because you can go back to 8-bit, like
right? Because it's highly stylized.
Right.
Back in the day, they weren't stylizing it; they were just making it however they were capable of making it. But now it's become so ingrained in the zeitgeist. That's a big word. I like that. It's been so ingrained in the gamer zeitgeist that and in fact the zeitgeist of the 80s that it's become a style all of its own. But back in the day they were just making it the way they could make it with sprites and stuff like that. So
and the first entry into 3D was the isometric pseudo 3D with games like Sonic 3D Blast, and I put in another game in here called Kirby's Dream Course. It was kind of like a golfing game with Kirby.
Oh, weird.
And it definitely had like the pseudo 3D landscapes. I have it here if you ever want to see it. And you had to like charge up your bar and smack Kirby in a certain direction and try to get a hole in one. It was very weird. I don't think it was meant to be a Kirby game. I think they just applied Kirby to it later.
Right.
But it's more of like a mini golf kind of like golfing game. But so that's the isometric pseudo 3D was very coming of age because it bridged the gap to actual 3D.
Yep.
And this is like the game-changing phenomena that happened in my lifetime, and I guess yours as well, being a Nintendo 64 kid, in 1996 with the release of Mario 64, changed the world.
Yep.
Every video game forever.
Yeah.
All the industry, all of the companies, everyone was chasing after the Mario 64 nugget. That you could go anywhere you want to go and do anything you want to do. They even had that in the commercial. I'm quoting the commercial. It was amazing. Completely full, open, 3D camera-controlled world that you can go anywhere you want to go. Right? And so that was the N64 era, the quote true 3D era that everyone tried to copy and clone. So Crash Bandicoot came out, and it was very you couldn't control the camera. So the camera angles were very controlled, but it was still completely 3D. Everything was polygonal, and it looked like watercolor. Yep. It was great.
I think of Spyro too, if you want to talk about a competitor to, kind of those competitors. All those Jak and Daxter, Ratchet and Clank, those would be platformers that kind of came after.
You bridged time gaps.
Did I?
Jak
sorry.
and Daxter's
I'm
too
sorry.
far
I'm sorry.
ahead.
What about Medieval? Medieval?
Yeah,
was that back in the day?
PS1.
Okay, all right, cool.
Yeah, so it's the PS1 and 64.
Yeah, so it's just to say
Saturn.
that Nintendo didn't completely dominate the platformer.
They did as far as the culture is concerned, but money-wise, PlayStation did.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
cool.
Financially, PlayStation was king. But not because they're platformers.
Yeah, because
Nintendo was king for the platformers.
Yeah,
because of Rareware.
Right? Mm-hmm.
Banjo-Kazooie, Banjo-Tooie,
Yeah.
Donkey Kong 64, Jet Force Gemini, Conker's Bad Fur Day.
Wow,
Just like
yeah,
boom, 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 boom.
just
And then
you
Zelda.
can keep going, yep.
Yeah, if you consider Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask platformers, which I kind of do because of all the jumping. Granted, it can be debated with because you don't have a jump button. I get that.
It has platforming elements. Again,
right.
we're going to keep bringing that up. It's got platforming elements. Well, and I'd say, again, one of the things I want to hit while we're talking about N64 is the other kind of revolutionary thing Nintendo started to do was start to blur those lines. And the best example I can think of is Smash Bros.
Yeah.
The original
The
Smash Bros. Is
game.
the platforming fighting game.
Yep.
Every fighting game up to that
you
point.
just blew my mind.
We've talked about that before, but we've talked about the whole idea of, like, in our fighting game episode, we talked about how almost all fighting games up to that point had been just,
Single
2D,
plane.
yeah, single plane. You,
Yep.
try to get their health bar down.
Yeah.
Nintendo
No
was the first one to say, like, we're so successful with platformers, and we're making a fighting game with almost all of our greatest platforming characters.
Yeah.
Like, let's make it a platformer. So one could argue that Smash Bros. Is as much a platformer as it is a fighting game.
Yeah, you can make the argument, and
I
you just blew my
absolutely would
mind.
make that argument. I just did.
Because also on the Nintendo 64, another genre blurring game was Turok Dinosaur Hunter,
Oh,
which is
yeah.
800% a platformer.
Yeah.
You have to turn
800.
yes, because it's so hard, and you have to jump very meticulously.
While still first
you have
person,
to have
yep.
like there's this map overlay that's a top down view, but it's like vector graphics.
Yeah.
And you have like a polygon that you have to jump, and you are a triangle,
Yeah.
and so you have a platform to platform, and you have to time those jumps perfectly.
Yeah.
And how maddening that game was to fall.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's a first-person shooter with tons of alien weapons and
Right.
craziness, sci-fi
Fighting
things.
dinosaurs.
But
Yep.
Nintendo 64 with platforming, man,
Yep.
like that was the
It was
3D
a platforming game, yep.
console.
Yeah, for sure. While I'm thinking about it, and just in kind of like an honorable mention, while we're kind of still in that '90s era,
Yeah.
I do want to mention that we're talking about a lot of N64 console games. Commander Keen, since we had talked
yeah.
about it in regards to the
Bethesda.
very disappointing
Mobile game adaptation from
announcement.
Bethesda. Yeah.
Commander Keen was a platformer for PC. It was, in fact, I want to say it was the first and only at the time platformer for the PC. I want to say that. I might be wrong about that.
I wouldn't say only.
There might have been like indie
Or
ones
first.
or whatever the.
When did it come
incredible
out?
one. It was mid '90s. I guess
There had to have been platformers on PC before that.
Maybe.
I mean, everything we talked about with consoles kind of existed in the PC world.
Yeah, but
in their
gaming
own
on
way.
the PC was like.
It was in America. It
weird.
was super expensive. In
Yeah.
the UK, lots of people were
fair enough.
doing their own thing with
Okay,
computers.
all right,
the
all
PC
right.
Engine and TurboGrafx.
It was a
and,
notable
Yeah.
platformer, and one that I played, so that's the only reason I'm bringing it up. So, cool. All right. Moving on from the true 3D era.
to the 21st century. So alluded to by Penguin Man earlier about Ratchet or Jack and Daxter. This is the PS2 GameCube era, and they kind of
Ratchet
just
and Clank.
they took like what was started with the N64 era and kind of perfected that and what it would look like with higher frame rates and focus on speed, like Sonic Adventure.
Sonic in general, the whole franchise is an interesting
It is.
platformer. Like, it was kind of a precursor to the infinite running games.
Yep.
Because that's what it is. You're running at a fixed,
Yeah.
kind of a fixed rate.
You want to be.
But there's jumping and
So
I guess you do.
Sonic's all about like I want to go fast, but then the platforming stops you from going
Keeps
fast.
you from going fast. Yeah.
So a lot of people don't like the I don't know what you call that juxtaposition. Like that problem. The
Mario does
contrast.
the same thing, though. Quite frankly, I mean, you want to get through the level as fast as possible.
Yeah, Mario
before it
has like
catches
a
up with
rhythm
you.
to it though. So if you
Sure.
know what you're doing, you can then do it.
Yeah.
The point of Sonic is to go fast.
Go fast. Go
And then
fast.
everything about the platforming stops you from going
Yeah.
fast. It's frustrating.
Yeah. But it's really popular among speedrunners. I
Yes.
remember Sonic being one of, like, even the Sonic Adventure being one of the more popular viewed speedrunning games.
Yeah.
Because it's all about speed. So
Sonic Adventure was the first mainstream Sonic game that took the side-scrolling platforming and turned it into an open world. Kind of
Yeah.
like Mario 64's
Yep.
jump from side-scrolling Mario to 3D Mario. This was that.
Yep.
But the frame rate was way higher. The speed was cranked up.
Yep.
It was intense, super in your face, very 90s.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, early aughts, I guess.
Rolling around at the speed of sound.
Yeah, I loved that song when it came out. I was
Oh,
I was
yeah,
one of
it
those
was-
dumb kids.
Sonic was, like, again, trying to be, like, super edgy and cool.
It was.
Ironically,
Even then.
doesn't age well.
it
Kinda-
does not.
whereas Mario ages perfectly, not trying.
Yep.
In fact, trying to appeal to kids. Mario ages wonderfully. Whereas Sonic,
does.
you're like, ooh, that's cringy. Oh, Sonic, why?
And I know a lot of people will poo-poo on Mario Sunshine, but Mario Sunshine is an example of a 21st century
Yeah.
platformer because they didn't just jump. They actually added new mechanics that were only possible with newer technology
Yeah.
with the GameCube, and that was the flood. Being able to hover or use a
Yeah.
rocket boost and like fly and like add these other kind of nuances to it. And Sony was crushing it with Jack and Daxter, Ratchet
Yep.
and Clank.
All the team
And then the introduction to open world full blown. I don't know if you would consider Morrowind. I mean, it's primarily an RPG, but it was a first person platforming, had platforming in it.
Yeah, platforming elements. I would say the same thing with your next example of Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah.
It's like it has elements, but I wouldn't say it's a platformer. Yeah.
But the introduction of the full open world as we see it today. I mean, it has its roots in Mario 64, but a more realized version of that is Morrowind, Grand Theft Auto 3.
Yeah.
And we're moving forward in that direction to the modern era, which is now.
What's platforming look like now?
Uncharted and Horizon Zero Dawn and Mario Odyssey. And
games that, again, all of which, other than Mario Odyssey, I would say Mario Odyssey is the truest platformer because it carries on the Mario tradition. I would say that those other examples, Horizon Zero Dawn, God of War, Uncharted, can all also be defined as completely other games, but they do have platforming elements in them for sure. Yep. So,
So that's like the true blown, like full blown open world platforming has emerged.
Yep. Cool. Even those though, almost all the platforming in those games all follow very linear paths. Yeah. So I don't know if I'd call it open world. I would say it has all of the platforming parts are very linear. They want you to go a specific way.
That's true.
Breath of the Wild, though, on the other hand, you can climb and jump, so it has platforming.
And hang glide.
It's probably the Zelda game that has the most platforming elements. In fact, was it the first Zelda game that had a jump button? Other than maybe Zelda 2?
Yeah. Actually, yeah.
So it has a proper jump button, and platforming is core to how the gameplay works.
It wouldn't be an 80-bit Podsmash episode if we didn't bring up Breath of the Wild.
No, of course not. Or World of Warcraft, which I also have already
Right. Yep.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, what's your favorite platform game? Again, let's go back. Do you want to roll it to true platformers?
No, it doesn't really
I would say
it
true
doesn't
platformer.
matter.
Let's get
Sure, if you want.
Let's say as close to true platformer as you want. Yeah.
I don't. It's insanely difficult because I think my favorite game of all time and the favorite platformer are almost the same argument. But my favorite game of all time is Final Fantasy VII, so it's not a platformer.
Absolutely not a
platformer.
platformer.
But if you ranked every video game I ever loved dear to my heart, like most of them are going to be platformers. It's super hard to say RPGs. Super hard to say which one is like my favorite platformer. But I really, really love Metroid Prime. Like the attitude of the game, the mood, the somberness of it, the platform jumping. It's a first-person shooter, I know. Yeah. But I don't know what it is about. It's a puzzle game, too, so it has the whole, like, you find upgrades that open up previous stuff. That's the Metroidvania definition. Like, it's still there. The map design is not really annoying. It's fun to explore and discover and jump across platforming. It's not maddening. It's not painstaking, annoying. But like every Mario game is my favorite too. So
I was gonna say I'm gonna be a dork and just say Mario 3. It's
so good.
It's so
timeless.
Good, and it really is just, to me, it's the quintessential platform experience.
Some people might say Mega Man.
And that would be a valid argument. It just wasn't my favorite because I didn't play a lot of it. I played a little bit of Mega Man, but not a lot.
I just wanted to throw it in there somewhere.
No, that's fair.
I just had to talk about it.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fair. And platform games. I really like the new Ratchet and Clank, and I would definitely say it's definitely a platformer.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's fun. Spyro is classic too. And
I didn't really like them that much.
Really interesting.
Like I played the new ones, the PS4
the reunited ones,
and I got platinums in 1 and 2, and they're fun. Yeah. But they just kind of got old really quick, and they're kind of shallow.
I want to play them. I do want to play them.
And I got to get the platinum in 3. Yeah. I'm just waiting for like a lull where I can't get trophies. So, side note, we're going to go off the rails here. Termite has to get 30 trophies a month. That's like his quota, because I want 365 trophies a year at least, and you can say #trophy a day and be really stupid. Right now you can gag a little bit, maybe roll your eyes so hard that you can't see anymore. Whatever you want to do, right? I get it. But, so whenever I hit a month where I'm like, I hit where all of my currently played games are in that middle of the game where the trophy rate is really low, but I have like 4 games that are all in that pit, and I can't seem to hit 30, that's what I'm going to throw in Spyro 3 and just platinum it in like a week, because they're super, super simple. But that's to the problem with Spyro is. It's super, super simple, and you just blow through it really fast. I don't know if it's a difficulty thing, or if the platforming is just kind of boring. I don't know what it is. It was fun. I enjoyed it. But
I want to honorable mention a platformer.
Definitely not my favorite.
That I haven't gotten to play yet, but I'm really intrigued by because I like the art style. And Cuphead.
Yeah.
Cuphead is kind of the modern. It's like if platforming got together with Dark Souls, got together with like weird 1920s era cartoons.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So it's super stylistic, super hard, but it's
Ridiculously
like,
hard.
again, back to that kind of quintessential platformer.
Yeah.
But all the animation was hand-drawn, which is just blows my mind. In fact, they're doing a Netflix series, apparently.
Yeah, I
of
did see
Cuphead.
that. Yep.
So,
That should
yeah.
be fun.
So I really
enjoy
want to
that.
play the game. I'm glad it's on the Switch because that's probably what I'll end up playing it on. But yeah,
No
just gotta try to
Xbox
find 'em.
achievements.
Gotta try to find a time to do it. So, all right, cool. Well, let's hit some. We got 10 minutes left or so. So let's hit some pros and cons. Oh crap! No, I'm way ahead of
You
myself.
just skipped a whole question.
Innovations. Let's hit innovations.
What innovations have been most revolutionary to the genre? And I talked at length about the jump to 3D in '96, so you get to talk about the next one.
The jump to true open world realization in modern games.
Yes.
You know what I would say? I'm gonna add my own in here and talk about my own.
Do what you.
I'm gonna say
You do you, boo.
I think the biggest innovation to and revolution to the platforming genre was the indie resurgence of platformers.
Good pool. Yeah.
I think that the fact that, again, it really banked on that, nostalgia that we have of the 80s and 90s, but the fact that indie developers were able to find a real footing in recreating or creating new games that felt like platformers. Or no, sorry, new games that were platformers that felt like the old platformers. They were filling a need in a niche that AAA video gaming had long since moved past from. AAA gaming, especially at the time of the indie resurgence, AAA gaming they'd incorporated what they wanted from platformers, but had really moved on to new things, newer, fresher, fertile soil, and just kind of left platforming in the dust, and it really found a footing in the indie industry, and they've been doing really interesting things enough to the point where now it's coming back in AAA gaming. Platformers, like AAA developers, are now making platformers as well for titles or for consoles like the Switch and for mobile and for Steam. So I just think I think that's been the most revolutionary thing is the nostalgia of it, ironically, is its own revolution. The fact that developers have said, hey, we're going to actually go back and revisit this genre because it's a stylistic choice, not because it's what is necessarily the most
Do you remember when
technical.
the indie resurgence was?
No, I could guess. I could guess when it is. Can I guess?
A little trivia.
2009?
What, a year? I wouldn't know about a year.
Oh.
But just like what console generation or like when that happened.
I would say it would have started around the turn of the PS3 to the PS4.
No, way before that.
Really?
Yeah.
I can see that.
So the original Xbox had a thing called the Xbox Live Arcade.
Uh-huh.
And it allowed like indie developers to put stuff on the original Xbox.
Okay.
That evolved and played forward through the 360. And there was what I'm going to say is the defining like pivotal moment was the release of Limbo. Which was 2010. So you were close with 2009.
Okay.
But it was definitely on the 360 with the Xbox Live Arcade time frame.
Okay.
And that whole system of games coming out. The Summer of Arcade. I remember all of it. I would just like eat all of these games up and loved them.
Yeah.
But I never did play Limbo.
Gotcha.
Limbo was followed up in 2016 with its sequel, and I don't remember the name of it, so I'm looking it up right now, and I never played it either, called Inside.
Nice.
That's a 2016 game, which would be PS4.
Cool.
But yeah, totally like side-scrolling platformers, indie games, Castle Crashers.
Yeah.
Like remember that?
Oh, Castle Crashers! I
Yeah.
still want to play
Super
through that.
Meat Boy.
I got it. Yeah.
All those games came out on the 360, and
Yeah.
they reported forward and HD resed up and all
Sure.
that stuff. But yeah, that's definitely a good revolutionizing moment.
Yeah.
Is that even a word?
Yeah,
Revolutionizing
I'll
moment?
take it. We all understand your meaning.
Yeah, in the platforming genre, for getting that link to a couple of things. One, getting indie developers involved in the publishing space, which is crazy to get funding for a tiny studio to make something awesome and super creative, but also bridging the gaps between the old retro stuff and the modern stuff and show how timeless art in games is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And they get to experiment with completely hugely different varying, because now where the technical advancements in platforming are happening, in classic platforming is in the styles that you can bring in. So now they can do things like Cuphead, where it's 100% hand-drawn animation, or they can do more things with like, higher textured effects and layered isometric style where they kind of mimic 3D imagery, but with a 2D. Yeah, so they can do all kinds of things that they weren't able to do back in Mario days.
Right. It's interesting because if you were a person who wanted to create you had a story in your mind, and you wanted to create this awesome like cinematic experience, and you want to maximize technology to the best of its ability now, you would go after the PC market.
Yep.
You'd hit that 4K ray tracing. You'd be all about it, right? You're telling this crazy story. You're gonna have the Avengers or whatever. Like I'm using that as an analogy for a summer blockbuster game. But if you came out with that in the NES version, that's what you got. It was like Metal Gear, or like like they were maximizing technology to the best of their ability and trying to tell the stories the best they could with the scrolling
with what
text.
they could. Yeah.
And like today, we're like reaching back with the modern technological advances. When we talked about the podcast last week about how technology is something that ages very poorly,
right?
And I didn't even realize the dichotomy between technology and art. Well, now you're going back to old school stuff, recognizing the art, but also bringing that forward with the technology we have today.
Yeah, but
just
it's
smooth
tools.
out the animations and bring like voice acting and dialogue and different maps and overlays, higher resolution textures and pixel art and like all this cool stuff that makes what we remember as the NES being modern today. It's just really, really cool.
Well, it is. And that's, I mean, again, the parallel to art is still there because, quite frankly, like, the art of painting, for example, started up in caves with whatever pigments they could get from leaves and stuff and smear on the walls.
Right.
Whereas then it evolved into,
now we have computers.
Yeah, exactly. Now they can make 3D rendered models. But before that, even still, like painting techniques and tools and brushes and that had to evolve with the technology. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So,
heck, even the technology of a paintbrush itself.
Chisels, like sculpting and everything became more sophisticated. Now you can sculpt using computers and giant
3D printers,
lathe machinery. You know what I mean? So 3D printing too. So it's all become every art form, I think, except for maybe like dance.
Yeah.
And acting, but even acting like can evolve with technology. It's like it's literally it's always about what tools are available. So I do truly believe that technology and art go hand in hand as long as you extend technology to tools, brushes, and stuff like that. Yeah, which I would say are technology.
Technology advances art.
Yep, exactly. So I think the parallel still is there as kind of a side holler back to our first episode
and last week's episode. Even.
Yeah, for real.
We had this a brief discussion about all this, but that's totally the revolutionary. Probably the most revolutionary thing to this entire genre, outside of the jump to 3D, which completely warped everyone's minds.
The 3D, but that was revolutionary across the board in gaming. So, but it definitely still had an effect on platformers because it created a whole new genre of platformers. Yep. So, I would say 3D and the indie revolution would be my two ones there. So, all right, cool. Pros and cons. Now we're at pros and cons. What's good? What is good? Like, what is enjoyable about platformers?
I don't know. They're awesome. They're fun, right?
They're fun.
It's the quintessential I'm playing a video game.
Yeah.
I'm platform. It's the most basic form of video gamery you can have.
I would agree. Yeah, there's something satisfying about that simple button to, you're not dealing with RPG, you're not dealing with user interface menus, you're not trying to
Mario didn't have a GUI.
You're not trying to min-max your items, you're not trying to get the aim just right, it's just jumping, and yet there's still an incredible amount of technical skill involved in just the timing of jumping in these incredibly difficult puzzles, to the point where you have the basic, your son playing Mario for the first time and trying to wrap his mind around when to jump and how to jump with as little guidance as possible from you, just letting him explore. Right. And then the technical skill of someone who's speedrunning it to get to the end in, 2 minutes and 30 seconds or whatever. Like, that gap of skill is still there and still present.
Yeah.
But it's simple. It's just hitting that A button at the right time.
Yep. Or the button. It might be an X button.
Right.
It could be a B button, depending on which controller you're using.
Yes. But A is sort of the universal jump. Hit that A button. Yep. Uh-huh. So
the cons it is extremely easy to fall into the trap of bad mechanics.
Yep.
And a platformer can be wrecked by just it feels bad.
And bugs are that much more noticeable.
Yes.
Like you see a bug in Skyrim, it usually is something hilarious that you'll post on YouTube and people will upvote you a million times on. But
this super serious cult of hooded figures is supposed to encircle you and have this conversation, but one of them's doing a moonwalk on the side. And you're like, okay, he's done.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
Whereas bugs in platformers usually result in you falling when you should have not fallen, and you're just, it's just irritating.
You did clear the jump, but there's a bug in the hitbox, for lack of a better description, and so you fall through the world and you
and they're
die.
not fun looking. They just suck. They just sort of like
maddening and frustrating. So the checkpoint system is a con here, or lack thereof. If you don't have good checkpoints, horrible, because you have to redo all this stuff. And if you cleared something that was super hard and you feel really good about it, and then something stupid kills you, and you have to redo the super hard thing again, nothing wants me to throw a controller through a wall more than that.
Yeah,
that drives me. Like, I did this, save it now. Like,
yep.
Please save it now.
Yes.
And so that's a con of platformers, is if they don't do that right.
Yeah. Another con for me is just I have to be in probably more than any other video game, I have to be in a very specific mood to replay them.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, replayability is hard. Even picking up, like, I loved Mario Odyssey, but even like going back and playing it, I'm like, even just get stars I haven't gotten yet, I'm still just like, even to get moons I haven't gotten yet, I'm still sitting here being like, I just don't.
Yeah,
I'm just
it
not
kind of died
motivated.
for me too. And like, I wanted to. Spoilers for that game. It's like 2 years old. I don't care.
Right.
When you beat the game, you unlock the dark side of the moon and the darker side of the moon. I never even touched those.
Oh, really?
Because when you beat the game, you also unlock the boxes in all of the existing worlds.
Yeah.
And so I went back to World 1. I'm going to 100% each world from 1 through the end again before I jump to the darker side. So I never even saw the darker side because I got bored.
Exactly.
I never even got there.
Yeah, so I do love. I kind of love the legacy of platforming games more than I actually love platforming games. Yeah. There's a few I really enjoyed. I sat there with my buddy Justin. Shout out Justin. And played.
Thanks for the bokoblin.
Yeah, and played Mario 3 for hours with him recently.
Oh, yeah?
Like,
on
and
the
that
Switch?
Was the he brought his NES Classic.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, by recently I mean like within the last year.
Yeah.
But it was before my son was born. But yeah, so that was fun. But it was more of like a novelty. The novelty of nostalgia.
Like you and I playing Castlevania at the beach.
Yeah, exactly. Still fun. Had a good time. But it's much more like I wouldn't sit there and like if it came down to playing that and playing, Final Fantasy Remake or whatever when it comes out, I'm just gonna play whatever's new and exciting. So there's no platformers that I'm thinking about now that I'm like, oh, I can't wait for that to come out. So they're much more like
not even new indie stuff.
Yeah, not
like
even the new indie
Bloodstained,
stuff.
like you mentioned.
Yeah, Bloodstained sounds really fascinating to me. Even Dead Cells and Celeste, I'm like intrigued by, but it's more because I've been told they're so good.
Right.
And I want to play them for that reason. Exactly. I want to play it for the reason of the fact that it reviewed well and people rave about it. Yeah. That's more what's drawing to me, and I would probably enjoy it. But I do, again, I just kind of feel like it definitely requires me to be in a mindset that I'm not always in. It's not the kind of mindset where I'm like, I'm going to turn my brain off and just play a game that I enjoy. It's no longer my turn my brain off type of game. So that's fine.
That's true.
I think it's just part of getting older. Yeah. And with whatever is coming out, But I'm not saying that, you can't be my age and not enjoy them. Maybe that's your thing. If that's your thing, great. For me, it's not my thing. That's all it is, So it's a con for me, but it's not necessarily a universal con, I would say.
Yeah, the last con this is my last con, or if you want to add any more to it after that, is that platformers inherently are kind of shallow, like you were saying. And I think you alluded to it there, which you don't have that deep, enriching story. I mean, some do. But by nature of what a platformer
limited. They have to be able to pull off some really interesting storytelling to tell a good story. Yeah, it's
mostly just like the cookie cutter. Someone's going to rescue across the world and explore something, and you go side scrolling and you do your thing. Or if it's like the 3D world of like Banjo-Kazooie, etc., kind of collectathon.
Yep.
Like it can get old. We just talked about Mario Odyssey and how it was kind of shallow. When you just collect a bunch of moons and you do a bunch of stuff and it becomes repetitive. You
save Zelda you save Peach for the millionth time.
Right.
You save the pink-clad princess for the millionth time.
Each new Mario, when it's new, is amazing because they do stuff that is innovative and it refreshes the whole system and the whole formula, and it feels incredible and awesome when you first play through it. Like Odyssey did, was absolutely amazing.
Incredibly
it totally deserves the amazing score that it got because of what it is.
Yep.
But it just, as a platformer, it's not going to hook me as long as something as deep as
Breath of the Wild or something like that. Yeah,
God of War, which I platinumed. Kingdom Hearts 3,
which I platinumed God of War, and then replayed it again, not getting any trophy. I love the game. I enjoy it. I probably will be a game that I revisit.
Oh, you know what we never talked about? Totally a platformer, modern Spider-Man.
Spider-Man's in a blurred state for me.
How is it not a platformer?
Because it's not.
You're web slinging and jumping and climbing walls.
Yeah, but traversal, interesting traversal does not a platformer make alone. Does that make sense?
So you're saying if you remove the combat and the RPG upgrades and Spider-Man just traveled across New York City.
Yeah, but that's not what the game is about.
It would be
that would
terrible.
be a platformer.
That would be the platformer
That
version
would be
of
a
it.
It would be close to yes.
So
it would be a
you
platformer.
strip Spider-Man of its combat system, of its
exactly. That's what I mean.
Quick time events.
That's what makes Spider-Man more. I would say the combat and it's the combination of the combat and the traversal.
Yeah.
The traversal is more about, it's an interesting way of moving throughout the world, but it's not, you can go anywhere. There's no punishment for falling in Spider-Man. You know what I mean? Like,
you just
I would
slow
say
down.
that's, it just slows you down. It's annoying, but you're still in a fully realized, I would say it's more of a sandbox game than a platformer, in the same way that I would put GTA as a sandbox game or a Prototype. I don't know if you ever played Prototype.
Ooh, no, but I want to.
It's more of a sandbox because you're not punished for falling in the way that you're punished for falling in a platformer.
So in order to make Spider-Man a platformer, you have to strip it of all its fun. Which is exactly the con we're trying to talk about.
Yeah.
How shallow platformers are.
Yeah,
anyway,
it can be. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So, cool. All right, what do you want to see from platforming going forward as our last question?
Virtual reality.
That actually is my answer. It's been our joke answer for so long, but it's actually my answer. Like, if you can, if and when VR gets sophisticated enough for things like haptic feedback and being able to recreate the idea, I want to be able to do what I did, rock hopping, but in VR, where I don't have to worry about falling into the water and getting wet and inconvenience. And my phone breaking.
Well, and there's more than that. It's like you have to travel, plan ahead, take a day off work, get there. Vehicles
be
closed.
out in the nature. Ugh, the worst.
That's awesome.
I know,
but it's all the anyway. Have you ever played Mirror's Edge?
Yes,
it's like that.
I started it,
but VR, right? So it's like a first-person parkour game, but you're in VR, and so you have to actually jump. And maybe with the advancement of technology, you have to reach for things, and it registers the gloves you have on or something, and then you have tension, so you have to pull stuff, and you feel it. That'd be awesome.
I'd say the only downside is they need to find a way to very quickly cut off the sensation of falling, or that could be cause heart attacks, make you throw up, all that stuff. Yeah, they'd have to they have to find a way where it's once you fall past a certain quote unquote, past a certain threshold, it immediately kills the simulation.
Yeah, darkens the screen,
and
fade
then
to black.
fade to black, and then boop, put you back where
It'd be
you
even
were.
funny if they just kept the Uncharted death scene. Yeah, it's third person. You just
people
see
start having
ragdoll.
aneurysms because of the
So
brain
funny.
sensation. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So no, VR is my answer. That's the next. I would say that if VR can get platforming, the sensation of platforming right, it could be as that game, whatever that game is, will be as revolutionary to VR and to gaming as the first truly realized VR MMORPG.
Yeah,
I'd say they're pretty close. Platforming and MMO would be what VR should really be shooting for, in my opinion. So
wow, you just married three things together: VR, MMORPGs, and platforming.
Yeah, I think I had mentioned in our MMO episode that I think MMOs as a genre will see their truest resurgence with VR. When you can create that world you can get lost in.
Yeah.
That I think is going to be
Ready Player One's happening.
Exactly. That's what it's, that's the
Dot
first
hack sign.
The first MMO to do that will be Sword Art Online. Yeah, exactly. It'll be that. I am not just making an avatar in this world. I am in this world and I can be whatever I want. That's going to be what VR is true potential is.
Yeah.
Followed by that very closely is platforming, because it'll give people that sensation of I'm running, I'm jumping, but I'm doing it in a virtual world that's safe but it's still fun. I think that's going to be the truest marriage of VR with platforming.
I would love to hear from someone in our audience that has played Fallout 4 or Skyrim in VR and let me know how that feels.
I have a coworker who's played Skyrim in VR and loves it. He says it is the best spell casting you can ever do in Skyrim. He said he never touched spell casting in Skyrim when in playing on consoles or PC.
Yeah.
He said that he loved it in VR. Yeah.
I would love to try it. I want a PSVR so bad. It's just so expensive.
Yeah.
And it's maddening with all of its cables and
Yeah.
But I don't know what else to do with the future of platforming. We talked about its genre leaps.
Yep.
One of them being a leap to 3D. So what's the future of 3D? VR, right?
Yeah.
And then the other one was a revolution in going back to the old days and bringing those forward.
Yeah.
So I'm going to hit that. I'm going to pull that thread. It'd be kind of cool to see going back to the N64 or even GameCube days and kind of fixing or bringing that art style back to today. No one is copying a PlayStation 1, watercolor pixelated thing.
Yeah.
And I wonder why, because if you look at games like Crash Bandicoot and Metal Gear Solid, like they're not pretty and they don't age well.
Yeah.
But I think there's something there for someone new to come up with an indie game or some sort of like reach callback to that where they could make that fun.
Yeah,
and like
intrepid game developers out there. Penguin and Termite want to see that.
Yeah, it'd be kind of fun. And I think that'd be a fun little, like, never been done before, venture into platforming that I would like to see.
I'd see that. Mm-hmm. Cool. People would slam it and be like, the graphics suck in this game.
Low fidelity, 3D graphics in a modern space.
Yeah, people wouldn't get it, but
I would. I'd eat it up.
Oh, cool. All right, well, that's about the amount of time we have left. So, yeah. Termite, where can the good people of the internet find us?
If you want to talk to me about Fallout 4 and Skyrim in VR, you can reach out to us at 80bitpodsmash.com. That is 80bitpodsmash.com, where is our landing website with links to Google Play, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, anywhere you would like to hear us. It should be there. If not, let us know.
Yep.
We'll put ourselves there. If you are lacking in 80-bit Podsmash, please let us know. Mm-hmm. You can reach out to us on social media platforms such as Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Reddit as well. All 80-bit Podsmash, no hyphens, uppercases, funny business. So add us there.
Yeah, or you can just send us a good old-fashioned Gmail if you want to. If you want to. The most private way of getting hold of us is probably that. Although I guess there's PMs and all the social
message
medias.
us on Reddit or Twitter.
Yeah. So that's where we are. If you want to just find out more about us, there's our landing website, which you said that has all of our episodes as well.
Our landing website is 80bitpodsmash.com.
Yep.
Has every episode.
You mentioned that, but it also has all of our episodes and information about us.
Our RSS feed has them all too. So you link any third party app to it. Don't forget our Twitch streams too.
Yep.
Twitch.tv/80bitpodsmash. We're going to start leveraging that a little bit more as we go. We're still kind of in the early, beta, alpha phase.
We're still trying to get the sound right.
Trying to get the sound mix to work.
Trying to find a schedule that works. But we're making it happen. So if that's where you want to follow us,
go ahead and go to twitch.tv/80bitpodsmash and subscribe to us so that when we do go live, you'll be notified.
You'll be the first to know.
Know that whenever I will go live, I will announce that I'm going live to a half hour to an hour before I do. Yeah. I'll say something on social media platforms. I'll just post a thing on Facebook or Twitter, and I'll tweet out, "Hey, I'm going to go live in an hour." You make sure you here's the link, and I'll send it all out there for you guys to see. So hit us up there, subscribe to us in advance so you don't miss anything.
Yep.
Keep in touch.
Do it.
Let us know.
Feedback, we want it.
Backfeed.
Just more backfeed. Give us more backfeed.
Yeah.
But until next week.
What are we talking about next week? Scurrying to our...
Here we go. Next week, we're going to be talking about... Oh, this is interesting. This is one that we've had on our list for a while, so we're kind of hitting our backlog of topics. We had talked before about storytelling in video games.
Yes.
Stories. That was one of our first episodes, actually. That was in one of the top 10 or whatever. Mm-hmm. First 10. We're going to be kind of revisiting that topic, but we're going to be talking about how long-term storytelling works when you're dealing with franchises that have 4, 5, 10, 12 entries in them. How does storytelling, does it even work, and how do you maintain a narrative? Mm-hmm. How do these developers maintain those narratives?
Right.
And is it even something that works? So that's what we're going to be...
Spoiler alert, I guarantee you we're going to talk about Zelda.
Probably.
3 timelines
Yeah.
to whet your appetite. It'll be fun.
We'll talk about Zelda. We'll talk about all kinds of franchises. So, that's what we're going to be hitting on, long-term storytelling. So tune in then.
See you next week.